I thought I knew Derek after 12 years of marriage. I believed in the man who would bring me coffee in bed every Sunday morning, who never cared that I wore his old college shirts around the house, who told me I was beautiful, even with messy hair and no makeup. We had built something real together in our little house in Austin, or at least I thought we had. But they say when your body changes, sometimes your heart follows a different path. I never imagined that path would lead him so far away from everything we had created together. Before I tell you how this whole mess unfolded, let me know in the comments where you are watching from, and do not forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories. Trust me, you will not believe what happened next. Looking back now, I can see our life before everything changed was beautifully ordinary. Derek and I met during our junior year at the University of Texas, where he was studying accounting and I was pursuing marketing. He was never the type to turn heads when he walked into a room, but he had this steady presence that made me feel safe. We graduated together, moved to Austin, and bought our first home with a tiny backyard where we dreamed of maybe having kids someday. Our daily routine was predictable in the best way possible. Derek would leave for his job at the accounting firm by 8 a.m., and I would head to my position at a local marketing agency. Evenings were ours completely. We would cook dinner together, usually something simple like pasta or grilled chicken, and settle in to watch whatever series we were binge-watching that month. Weekends meant sleeping in farmers' market visits and long walks around Lady Bird Lake. We both had gained maybe 15 pounds since our wedding day, but it never seemed to matter. Derek used to wrap his arms around my waist and say he loved me exactly as I was, that I never needed to change a single thing. The Derek I married was content with our quiet life. He never obsessed over his appearance or spent hours looking at himself in mirrors. His idea of exercise was the occasional bike ride or hiking trail when the weather was perfect. He wore the same style of khakis and polo shirts to work every day, and his weekend uniform was jeans and whatever free t-shirt he had gotten from company events. I loved that about him. There was no pretense, no vanity, just a genuine person who seemed happy with who he was and what we had built together. That all began to shift on a cold January morning last year, when Derek announced he had signed up for a gym membership. He presented it as a New Year resolution, something about wanting to be healthier, so he could live a long life with me. The way he explained it made perfect sense, and I was actually proud of him for taking charge of his health. I even encouraged him, suggesting we could meal prep together on Sundays, and maybe I could join him for walks on the treadmill sometimes. Derek threw himself into this new routine with an intensity that surprised me. He started waking up at 5:30 a.m. to hit the gym before work, something completely unlike the man who used to hit snooze 3 times every morning. Our kitchen transformed overnight as he cleared out anything that did not fit his new nutritional goals. Gone were the chips we used to share during movie nights, the ice cream we kept in the freezer for special occasions, and even the bread we used for our weekend pancake tradition. He hired a personal trainer named Jake, a 26-year-old guy who looked like he had stepped out of a fitness magazine. Derek would come home talking about Jake this and Jake that, how Jake had taught him proper form, and how Jake said he had incredible potential. Derek started using words I had never heard from him before, talking about macros and cutting phases and bulking cycles. He bought a digital scale that he would step on every single morning, recording the numbers in an app on his phone. Within just a few weeks, I could see the changes beginning. Derek was losing weight and gaining muscle definition in places I had never noticed before. But more than the physical transformation, something was shifting in his personality. He became obsessed with tracking everything he ate, measuring portions with a food scale, and preparing all his meals in advance. Our spontaneous dinner dates disappeared because Derek could not risk eating something that was not part of his plan. The first time I really felt the distance growing between us was when I suggested ordering pizza for one of our Friday night movie traditions. Derek looked at me like I had suggested we rob a bank. He explained that pizza did not fit into his macros and that he needed to stay consistent with his goals. Instead, he heated up one of his pre-made chicken and rice bowls while I ate leftover Chinese takeout alone. As I sat there, watching him eat his perfectly measured meal, I felt like I was dining with a stranger who happened to look like my husband. After 3 months, the changes in Derek were undeniable. He had lost 15 pounds and gained noticeable muscle mass in his arms and chest. But the transformation went beyond just physical appearance. Derek started buying new clothes that showed off his physique, trading his loose-fitting polos for fitted t-shirts and his relaxed jeans for ones that hugged his legs. He began taking selfies at the gym, something he had never done before, and posting them on his Instagram account that had been dormant for years. The compliments started rolling in from people we barely knew, and Derek would read them to me with obvious pride. Women from his gym would comment with fire emojis and heart eyes, and instead of ignoring them or deleting the comments like the old Derek might have done, he would respond with gratitude and even heart them back. When I mentioned that it made me uncomfortable, Derek brushed off my concerns, saying it was just people being supportive of his fitness journey. As Derek continued his transformation, the distance between us grew wider every week. After 6 months at the gym, he had completely changed his body composition, and with it, his entire personality seemed to shift. The humble content man I had married was being replaced by someone who spent significant time admiring himself in every reflective surface we passed. Derek started telling me about the attention he was getting from other women at the gym, not in a way that suggested he was uncomfortable with it, but almost like he was proud that people were finally noticing him. His trainer, Jake, had apparently told him that he had the potential to be a fitness model, and Derek took this comment as gospel truth. He began participating in small fitness challenges at the gym, posting before and after photos that showed his dramatic transformation. The Derek who used to be camera shy was now taking weekly progress photos of his abs and posting them online for the world to see. He would stand in front of our bathroom mirror for long periods, flexing and examining his muscles from every angle. The emotional and physical intimacy we had always shared began to disappear completely. Derek claimed he was in a cutting phase and needed to focus all his energy on his goals. Date nights became impossible because Derek refused to eat at any restaurant that could not provide detailed nutritional information. Even at home, he would decline my attempts at physical affection, saying he needed to maintain his focus and discipline. But what hurt more than the physical distance were the comments he started making about my lifestyle and appearance. It began subtly, with Derek suggesting that I might want to consider joining him at the gym, or maybe tracking my food intake. When I wore dresses that had fit me perfectly for years, he would make observations about how they looked tighter than before. He started comparing me to women he saw on fitness Instagram accounts, showing me photos and saying things like, "Look at Sarah, she has 2 kids and still maintains her figure." Or, "Did you see how disciplined Amanda is with her nutrition?" Derek would lecture me about the dangers of eating too many carbohydrates or not getting enough protein, as if I had never successfully fed myself before his fitness awakening. He replaced our regular grocery shopping trips with solo missions where he would return with protein powders, supplements, and pre-portioned meals that cost 3 times what our normal food budget used to be. When I suggested that his new eating habits were becoming expensive, Derek responded that investing in his health was worth any cost. The social media aspect of Derek's transformation became increasingly problematic for our relationship. His follower count on Instagram jumped from around 300 people, mostly family and old college friends, to over 2,000 in just a few months. The majority of these new followers were women who regularly commented on his posts with flirtatious messages and compliments about his physique. Derek not only failed to discourage this attention, but seemed to actively encourage it by responding to their comments and even sliding into direct messages with some of them. When I discovered that Derek was having private conversations with several women from his gym, I confronted him about the appropriateness of these interactions. Derek dismissed my concerns completely, claiming that these were just friendships based on shared fitness interests and that I was being insecure and controlling. He said these women understood his lifestyle and goals in ways that I apparently did not, and that their conversations were purely about nutrition advice and workout tips. Derek started going out for drinks with his gym friends multiple times per week, always without inviting me. When I asked if I could join them sometime, Derek would say that I would not fit in because they only talked about fitness-related topics that would bore me. He began dressing up more carefully for these gym sessions, spending time styling his hair and choosing outfits that showed off his physique, even though he was just going to work out and sweat. The man who used to spend every evening cuddled up with me on the couch was now scheduling his entire life around gym sessions, meal prep, and social events, with people who had not even known him 6 months earlier. I felt like I was becoming invisible in my own marriage, watching my husband of 12 years transform into someone who seemed to view me as an obstacle to his new lifestyle, rather than a partner who had supported him through everything. The conversation that changed everything happened on a Friday night in late summer, almost 8 months after Derek had started his fitness journey. I had spent the afternoon preparing what used to be his favorite dinner, hoping we could have a romantic evening together like we used to. I set the table with candles, opened a bottle of wine, and waited for him to come home from his evening gym session. When Derek finally walked through the door at 9 p.m. Later than usual, he was glowing with post-workout endorphins and barely acknowledged the effort I had put into the evening. Derek took one look at the dinner I had prepared and immediately declined to eat any of it, explaining that it did not fit into his macro goals for the day and that he had already consumed his planned post-workout meal at the gym. He grabbed one of his pre-made protein smoothies from the refrigerator and sat down across from me while I ate alone. The silence stretched between us as I tried to enjoy the meal I had cooked with so much hope and care. That silence finally broke when I could not hold back my frustration any longer. I told Derek how lonely I had been, feeling how much I missed the connection we used to share and how his obsession with fitness seemed to be taking priority over everything else in his life, including our marriage. What happened next still takes my breath away when I think about it. Instead of showing any understanding or empathy, Derek responded with words that cut deeper than anything he had ever said to me. Derek told me that he had outgrown our relationship and that his transformation had opened his eyes to what he really deserved in a partner. He said that I did not understand the journey he was on and that he needed someone who shared his values about health and fitness. The man who had once promised to love me in sickness and health, who had vowed to stand by me through better or worse, was sitting across from me explaining that he deserved better than what I could offer him. He admitted that he had developed connections with several people from his gym people who understood his goals and supported his lifestyle in ways that I apparently could not. While he claimed these connections were not physical, he described them as intellectual and spiritual bonds that made him realize what had been missing from our relationship. Derek suggested that we should separate at least temporarily so that both of us could figure out what we really wanted from life. Derek actually had the nerve to frame his desire to leave our marriage as something that would be good for both of us. He said that I should use this time to find myself the way he had found himself, through fitness. He suggested that maybe I needed to discover who I was outside of our relationship, as if I had somehow lost my identity by being a supportive wife to him for 12 years. I spent that entire night crying, staring at old photos of us together, and trying to understand how the man in those pictures had become someone who could discard our entire history together so casually. I called my sister Jessica in California at 3 a.m., and she listened to me sob through the details of Derek's transformation and his ultimatum. Jessica was furious, saying that the Derek she had known and loved as a brother-in-law would never have treated me this way. As I lay in bed that night, unable to sleep, I began to see our entire relationship through new eyes. I realized that for the past year, I had been making excuses for Derek's behavior, convincing myself that his changes were positive and that I should be supportive of his goals. I had ignored the warning signs when he started treating me like I was somehow beneath his new standards, and I had allowed him to make me feel ashamed of who I was. But in those dark hours before dawn, something shifted inside me. I realized that Derek was right about one thing I did need to discover who I was outside of our relationship. Not because I had lost myself by being married to him, but because I had spent so much energy supporting his dreams and goals that I had put my own on the back burner. Instead of begging Derek to reconsider or trying to change myself to meet his new standards, I decided to show him exactly what he was giving up. The next morning, when Derek appeared in the kitchen, expecting to find me devastated and pleading for another chance, he found something completely different. I was calm, collected, and ready with my own terms. I told him that if he wanted out of our marriage, that was fine, but he could not have it both ways. Derek could stay in the guest room while we worked out the legal details, but I would be keeping our house since I had contributed significantly to the down payment with money from my inheritance. I informed Derek that I would be contacting a lawyer to make sure I understood all my rights in this situation, and that he needed to be prepared to account for the thousands of dollars he had spent on gym memberships, personal training supplements, and new clothes without consulting me. As Derek stood there in our kitchen, probably expecting tears and drama, I served him with the reality that his actions had consequences and that I was not going to make this easy for him. The 2 weeks following our separation conversation were eye-opening for both Derek and me, though in very different ways. Derek initially seemed excited about his newfound freedom, quickly moving in with his gym buddy Marcus, who had a bachelor pad downtown. Derek dove headfirst into the single life he thought he wanted, immediately asking out Madison, one of the trainers from his gym, who had been commenting flirty messages on his social media posts for months. Derek's first taste of reality came when he had to start paying for his own rent, groceries, utilities, and all the other expenses that I had been quietly managing during our marriage. The comfortable lifestyle he had been living while spending $3,000 a month on fitness-related expenses suddenly became unsustainable when he had to cover basic living costs on top of his gym obsession. The credit card bills started piling up as Derek tried to maintain his image by paying for expensive dinners and drinks to impress his new social circle. Meanwhile, Derek's relationship with Madison quickly revealed itself to be as shallow as everything else in his new world. Madison was only interested in spending time with Derek when he was footing the bill for upscale restaurants and trendy bars. His gym friends turned out to be fair-weather companions who enjoyed Derek's company when he was buying rounds of drinks, but were nowhere to be found when he needed genuine support or friendship. The intellectual and spiritual connections Derek thought he had found with people from his fitness community proved to be nothing more than superficial conversations about workout routines and protein powders. Derek began to realize that the deep conversations, emotional support, and genuine companionship he had shared with me during our 12 years together could not be replaced by people who only knew the new version of himself. While Derek was discovering the hollow nature of his new life, I was experiencing a transformation of my own that had nothing to do with physical appearance and everything to do with reclaiming my identity and goals. I enrolled in the evening MBA program I had been putting off for years, something I had postponed, because Derek's career had seemed more important at the time. I threw myself into my studies with a passion I had forgotten I possessed, and my professors quickly noticed my dedication and business acumen. The promotion opportunity I had been waiting for at my marketing agency finally materialized, partly because I was no longer limiting myself to maintain work-life balance for a husband who had not appreciated the sacrifice. My presentation to the board about expanding our digital marketing services was so well received that they offered me the position of Senior Marketing Director with a salary increase that made me completely financially independent. I started traveling for work, something Derek had always discouraged because it meant time away from home and our routine. These business trips opened up my world in ways I had not expected, introducing me to inspiring professionals who challenged me intellectually and supported my ambitions without expecting anything in return. For the first time in years, I felt like I was growing as a person rather than just maintaining the status quo. My newfound confidence and independence had an unexpected side effect. I naturally became more attractive to the people around me. Not because I was trying to get attention or prove anything to Derek, but because confidence and self-assurance are magnetic qualities that draw people in. A colleague named David, an architect I met through the hiking group I joined, began expressing interest in getting to know me better outside of our weekend outdoor adventures. I was not ready to jump into another relationship so soon after my marriage ended, but it felt incredible to be appreciated for my mind, my sense of humor, and my ambitions, rather than being criticized for not meeting someone else's physical standards. David treated me with the respect and admiration that I had forgotten I deserved, and our conversations reminded me how much I enjoyed intellectual connection with someone who valued my opinions and ideas. During this time, Derek made several attempts to reconnect with me, starting with text messages that progressed from casual check-ins to desperate pleas for reconciliation. His relationship with Madison had imploded when she moved on to a wealthier client at the gym, and his financial situation had become precarious due to his overspending on trying to maintain his new lifestyle. Derek began to understand that the grass was not greener on the other side of our marriage. When Derek finally showed up at our house unannounced, begging for a second chance and admitting that he had made a huge mistake, I felt a mixture of sadness and clarity that surprised me. The man standing on my doorstep looked physically impressive, but emotionally broken, and I could see in his eyes that he finally understood what he had thrown away. Derek confessed that he had been lonely and lost without the emotional support and genuine love that I had provided for 12 years. But I had changed too during our time apart, and not in ways that Derek had anticipated. I was no longer the woman who would accept being treated as a second choice, or who would compromise my own worth to save a relationship with someone who had demonstrated such disrespect for our partnership. I told Derek calmly but firmly that he had been right when he said he had outgrown our relationship, because I had grown too, just not in the direction he had expected. I explained to Derek that I was not bitter about what had happened between us, because his leaving had forced me to rediscover strength and independence I had forgotten I possessed. I had learned that my value as a person was not dependent on someone else's approval or attraction, and that a real partnership requires mutual respect and support, not one person constantly trying to live up to another person's evolving standards. The woman Derek had left behind no longer existed, and the woman I had become deserved a partner who would never make me question my worth or feel like I had to change myself to be worthy of love. I wished Derek well in rebuilding his life and finding whatever it was he was really searching for, but I made it clear that my chapter with him was permanently closed. I was writing new pages now, and they were filled with possibilities and adventures that I could never have imagined while I was busy trying to be the perfect wife to someone who did not appreciate what he had. Sometimes the best thing someone can do for you is leave because it forces you to discover strength you never knew you had and to build a life that truly reflects your values and dreams. As for Derek, I heard through mutual friends that he eventually got his priorities straight and started focusing on building real relationships rather than chasing superficial connections. I genuinely hope he finds happiness, but my story is no longer connected to his, and I have never been more grateful for the unexpected gift of starting over. What do you think about Derek's transformation and the way this whole situation played out? Have you ever had someone in your life who changed dramatically and forgot about the people who supported them along the way? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because I love reading your stories and perspectives. If this story resonated with you or taught you something about the importance of knowing your worth, please give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Do not forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming challenges and finding strength in unexpected places. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes the biggest betrayals lead to the most beautiful new beginnings. I wish you all the courage to know your worth and never settle for less than you deserve.